What did I say? I told y'all. I said there were going to be upsets, and 5 out of 6 for my picks. The only one I missed were the Dolphins. What was I thinking there? That one. But anyways, let's get into my wildcard weekend review. There's a lot to talk about. Wow, what some some interesting games we had. That's such a generic term, but if you were to tell me that there were going to be this many blowouts, I probably would have. I knew there were going to be a couple, but this many, I mean, 5 out of the 6 were blowouts pretty much. So kicking off with the Texans, beating the Browns 45-14. Like I said last episode and the one before that, CJ Stroud is him. He is a phenomenon when it comes to rookie quarterbacks we haven't seen in a long time. He's playing like a vet. His accuracy is insane. He went 16 for 21, 274 yards, 3 passing touchdowns in the game against the Browns, and he just completely exploiting the Browns secondary, a team that's ranked first in the league defensively, and he just completely picked them apart. I mean, but I will give the Browns their flowers. They made it a close game in the first quarter, at least. Texans opened up scoring when the Browns came back. It was pretty much a back and forth shootout at that point, until there was a 76-yard touchdown by the Texans, and they went up 17-14 and pretty much closed the game at that point. I mean, after that, there was a beautiful 37-yard touchdown to Dalton Schultz and just some blown coverage by the secondary. And like I said, like Stroud was just up completely picking apart this defense, and his passes were just as perfectly on target as you could get. I'm so sorry, Browns fans. Back-to-back pick sixes by Flacco. Give me one pick six, fine. A pick six and a pick sucks, fine. Back-to-back pick sixes. In the first, the guy ran from the 20-yard line all the way into the end zone, like an 80-yard touchdown turn, and no one touched him. So a complete just dismantle of the Browns in this game. I think there was probably only like 4 or 5 great Browns players out there. Flacco was making some connections, and Njoku was playing great, but you can't, in a playoff game, 2 pick sixes, it's just putting a nail in the coffin at that point. And not just giving all of the credit to the Texans offense. I mean, their defense also played a great game. Like I said, those 2 pick sixes. Their O-line, such great protection on Stroud. He was sacked 0 times in that game versus the Texans D got to Flacco 4 times for a total of 39 lost yards in that. And if you look at average yards per pass, when we're going back to the offense, the Texans averaged 12 yards per pass, and the Browns averaged 5.4 yards per pass. So I don't know what's going on with the Browns secondary. They look like little lost puppies out there. But again, it's just a mismatch in every way. I didn't think it was going to be this much of a blowout, but kind of once the wheels started turning on the Texans side, the Browns couldn't keep up. So Browns, I'm sorry, your season's over. Texans will move on to play the Ravens next week, which should be a very, very interesting game. I mean, I'm not giving my picks yet. My picks will come later. Next, we got Chiefs 26, Dolphins 7, in what was, of course, one of the coldest games. Everyone was freezing out there. It was -4, but the wind chill made it feel like -20. I would not survive. I would not survive. I don't even want to critique this game that much because how do you play in conditions like that? I mean, kudos to all those guys for even getting out there. I mean, Tyreek literally said he didn't want to wear sleeves because he didn't want to look weak. Bro, you're not looking weak. You're out there playing. Good for you. But Dolphins just couldn't get anything going on offense. I really don't think Mike McDaniel trusted Tua to throw the ball more than 5 yards because he was calling for a lot of screen passes, a lot of handoffs to Mozart for literally 1 yard. He had a couple 1-yard pickups, a 5-yard pickup. And then L'Jarius Sneed just completely shut down Tyreek. I mean, I think Tyreek only had about 85 yards in that game. Great secondary play by Sneed, who, I mean, I figured he was going to be just man covering Tyreek the whole time. Waddle was a non-factor in the game. I mean, Achane barely got going. The Chiefs just really outplayed the Dolphins. I mean, the score shows it in itself, but when you take even deeper dive into some of the stats, I mean, the Chiefs had 409 total yards of offense, and the Dolphins had 264, and they're both playing in the same conditions. I mean, you saw there were a couple very catchable balls by Travis Kelce, and he couldn't catch them, and don't get mad at him. It was just his hands were freezing, so and then, I mean, the Chiefs side, pretty much, the offensive side, it wasn't that impressive of a game. Pretty solid performance by Rashee Rice. He had 130 yards and a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes had 262 passing yards, a touchdown, QBR of 88.3. So, I mean, nothing super stellar. Probably would have been a lot better if he had, receivers to catch the ball downfield, but that's a story for another time. With the conditions, I mean, it wasn't a crazy performance by the Chiefs, but got the job done. They will take on the Bills next week. Packers 48, Cowboys 32. I swear, I didn't even predict it to be this crazy, okay? I knew the Packers were going to win, but I did not expect the score to be 27-0 at some point. Cowboys, what happened? Legitimately, what happened? I mean, the Packers, the best way I can explain this Packers team is not only Jordan Love improved immensely since week 8 against Minnesota. I mean, the past 9 games, he's had 21 touchdowns and just 1 pick versus he was throwing multiple pick games in the beginning of the season. But it's not just him that's improved, it's the whole synergy of the team, because they haven't had all of their starters in at the same time. I mean, AJ Dillon is not on this one, but Jones was in, who had a monster game I'll talk about in a second. But I think what they really did to the Cowboys is they went in as underdogs, and the Cowboys just did not know how to plan against some of these rookie wide receivers. They really did it. They were, like I said, Aaron Jones, monster game, 3 rushing touchdowns, 118 yards in his home state of Texas. He's the father of the Cowboys. He really is. Jordan Love, weirdly, almost the exact same stats as CJ Stroud. 16 for 21, 272 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Stroud had 274 passing yards. So these games were really, really similar in the blowout factor and the underdog taking the W. Very eerie, very weird there. Romeo Doubs had a great game, 151 yards and a touchdown as well. Kind of went unnoticed. He wasn't really talked about in the media very much, but Cowboys, man. I do want to say I've been a fan of Jake Ferguson all season. He was a great pick for my fantasy teams. He had 3 touchdowns in this game, 2 garbage time touchdowns. He had 93 yards, I think, and he's been just a great addition to this Cowboys team. And Dak, poor Dak, he was fighting out there. He put up 400 plus yards, even though they were trailing by 30 at some point. Still put up 400 plus yards, but he had a pick 6. A pick similar to Joe Flacco, but 2 of them weren't pick 6s. But again, these games were very weirdly similar. But Dak just couldn't get it done. I think what jumps off the page for me is probably in the beginning of the game. I mean, CD and Dak looked like they were just completely on not even different pages, different books. There were like 3 drops from CD, and Dak was throwing them completely out of his reach. Missed connections, wrong routes. It looked sloppy, and they looked stunned, like they weren't expecting the Packers to go out and score that quickly. Fair enough, to each their own, but this is a playoff game. I think really, all in all, the Cowboys defense lost this game for them. They weren't getting stops, they weren't making tackles, and they were letting these 20-year-olds get open. So that's all I'm going to say about this game. Packers will take on the 49ers next week for a brutal matchup, going the 7th seed against the number 1 seed. So stoked for that. Next up, we got Lions beating the Rams 24-23. And this was definitely the most contested game we had all weekend, because the other ones were, pretty much all blowouts except for this game, because it was the closest, just a differential of 1 point. But first off, Lions, here are your flowers. Congrats on winning a playoff game for the first time in 33 years since 1991. So the first time this home field has even hosted a playoff game, and to have Matthew Stafford return to it, talk about just a perfect storyline right there. But Lions get it done. When you look at the stats and the comparisons in this game, they are uncannily similar. The Rams had 15 passing first downs and the Lions had 16. The Rams had 4 rushing first downs and the Lions had 6. And both these teams were 3-9 on third down conversions. Again, very uncannily similar. But the biggest difference in what I think cost the Rams the game is that they were 0-3 on red zone attempts, and the Lions were 3-on-3. They punched in the ball, got it in every single time they're in the red zone. The Rams found a way to score, but if they, on any of those 3 red zone attempts, instead of just coming away with a field goal, if they could have gotten it in, it wouldn't have been a 1-point game. So even though Puka played lights out, I can't say enough good things about Puka. He had 181 yards. Again, breaking another rookie record. That is the most receiving yards in a playoff game by a rookie in NFL history. But the Lions defense also really got their job done, had those huge 3 red zone stops, like I said, and then they got to Stafford 3 times for a loss of about 22 yards. So very close game, very similar stats, both great performances, but Lions squeaked out this one, and now they will take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the game that was originally supposed to be on Sunday, but got flexed to, I guess you can say flex to Monday at 4:30 Eastern time because of the snow. Bills beating the Steelers 31-17, and I guess Josh Allen's back. Was he ever gone? I don't think he wasn't gone. They've won a good stretch of games. I won't say he's gone. But we saw the Josh Allen that we've really been expecting to see throughout the entire season, even when they hit that 500 slump through week 10. So he had 4 total touchdowns in this game. He had a crazy 52-yard rushing touchdown where he literally was trampling the Steelers defense, and no one could tackle him. I don't know if they were scared because he's a big dude coming at you, but no one could tackle him. That was kind of a theme of the game, was that Steelers D could not get people to the ground. The Bills ended up going up 21-0, and there were so many Steelers 3-and-outs. The Bills D, even though with all the injuries they've succumbed all season, they were playing absolutely lights out in this game, and they really made Mason Rudolph choke under the pressure. But the Steelers did score on 3 straight possessions after that, kind of opening up the game a little bit, made it 24-17, 1 possession game. But right after that, then the Bills scored a 17-yard touchdown pass to Shakir, and he was about to hit the ground, broke a tackle, and got right into the end zone. It was such a silly is not an analytical word, but it was such a silly play. Like how did the Steelers defense not get him down? Gotta practice tackles, but again, a lot of missed tackles. That was kind of the theme of this game. And once the Bills got that momentum, it was pretty much game over after that. Even early in the game, Steelers were playing messy ball. They had 2 fumbles. They had a pick. They had another pick or another fumble off of Freiermuth that was going to be a fumble, and then luckily he was out of bounds, so that could have been 3 fumbles and a pick. And the Steelers rushing game was pretty much non-existent, which is a factor that they like to use a lot throughout the season. Najee and Warren, they both had sub 40 yards. I think it was 37 and 38 respectively. And this game just straight up was written for the Bills, who will now take on Kansas City next week. Gotta love the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen Bowl. And lastly, we have the Buccaneers beating the Eagles 32-9. 32-9. You heard that. You heard that right. Baker Mayfield did it. He won a playoff game. He came into the season after Tom Brady and had a better record than Tom Brady. Baker Mayfield. Do I have to change my opinion on him? No, I'm not going to. But anyways, I think this game was really the Eagles throwing in the white towel. I mean, it's based on the things on paper and watching the way they played the past couple games, even though they were favorites, I just didn't see in a way that they would win this game. And to lose, they did. Pretty much in every single metric. I mean, they were 0-9 on 3rd down conversions. They were 0-2 on 4th down efficiency. They could not get that first down. They only had 276 yards of total offense versus the Bucs 426 yards of total offense. Even when it comes to pass protection, and the Eagles having such a great O-line, and the Bucs were the 7th best at sacking the quarterback throughout the season, but they just could not stop the pressure on Jalen Hurts. He had a lot of throwaway balls. The Bucs got to him 4 times for 30 yards lost, and it was just a sad performance. It really was a sad performance. No picks, no fumbles, so a pretty clean game in that way. But I mean, the Bucs had 23 total first downs. The Eagles had 13. Couldn't get their offense going. Finally scored a touchdown and then got stopped in a 2-point conversion on a tush push, which is just kind of like the nail in the coffin at that point. That's probably when all of their hopes kind of went out the window. Baker finished the day going 22 for 36. He had 337 passing yards, 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers. It wasn't even Mike Evans, who was on my fantasy team yesterday in Daily Fantasy, and it was just none of them. They just didn't want to go to Mike Evans, but it's fine. And I think one of the saddest things that came out of this game was they camera panned right to Jason Kelce after, and he was just crying. Kind of expected he was going to retire. Announced today that he told his teammates he was going to retire after 13 seasons, a ton of Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl ring. Went to the Super Bowl last year, couldn't get it done, but great career by that guy. Anyways, kind of all expected that, but overall, Eagles, man, we'll see where Sirianni goes. Well, I told y'all it was going to be some wild games, and boy, was I right. A lot of upsets in there. Next week, we got the divisionals coming out. I will set my picks coming up in a couple days. Hope there's some upsets. Hope it's not my team. Hope it's not your team. I'll catch you on a little bit.